It is National Accessibility Week and time to promote accessibility and inclusion and recognize the contributions of Canadians with disabilities. It could also be the week when Canada's first accessibility legislation is passed. So this morning, we're joined by Minister of Public Services and Procurement and Accessibility, Carla Qualtrough. Minister, thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, let's talk Bill C-81, the Accessibility Canada Act. It's awaiting a vote in the House of Commons. It went to the Senate. A few little changes happened there. Okay, so this bill would require all government agencies as well as federally regulated services to become fully accessible by 2014. The big question that we were asking ourselves in our meeting upstairs is why is Canada not yet fully accessible, and why is it going to take till 2040 to get there?
It's a really good question. And what we do know is, well, Canada has a really robust human rights system. It's very reactive. You have to wait until somebody is discriminated against before you can help them. Someone has to be denied a service, denied a job, denied an opportunity, and then the system kind of kicks in to say, no, that was discrimination, no. And what this law does is kind of proactively put elements into the system that will create standards, remove barriers, and kind of put the onus on the system to do better, not the individual to fight the system.
On Monday, we had Bill Adair, the Executive Director of Spinal Cord Injury Canada, on the show. And he was talking about how this bill needs to get passed before the election.
Yep.
Let's take a listen.
Many of us across the country have been working for 4 years now to build this act. We've worked with the government. We've worked with all parties to make sure it's as strong as it can be. So if it's not passed, the bill dies on the order paper, and we wait years and years and years to start removing barriers.
So will this bill get passed before the election?
Well, I can't presume what Parliament's going to do, of course, but I am very confident that it will. This is the only piece of government legislation that's had all-party consent. So everybody knows that this is long overdue, Ben. We've had this for a long time.
We've been talking about, we talked during the break about sort of the compelling financial case for something like this to come into effect, because 22% of Canadians over the age of 15 have some form of disability. The employment rate, and this was staggering to me, among disabled Canadians is only 60%. The rest of Canada is 80%. So raising those people up to the level of the rest of Canadians just makes financial sense. But what could the government do right now? If you could snap your fingers, what could we do right now to make life better, to make Canada more accessible?
Well, I think what we need to do is focus on talking about disability differently, getting away from the idea that our citizens are somehow broken or need help, and really recognizing this untapped labor pool, this kind of the business case for inclusion, that if your business doesn't give you access to 20% of consumers, you're missing out. That, you know, if your a 3,000 person conference will be decided upon the location by the 8 or 10 accessible rooms they need in a hotel. Like, there's a staggering business case for inclusion.
Minister, the last thing I want to say is, and I got chills when we were talking about this before, but as a woman who is legally blind, who was in a former life an advocate, who is now in Parliament responsible for shepherding this breakthrough legislation through the House of Commons that has been receiving support from across the aisle, what does this mean to you personally?
This is a really big deal. This is historic legislation, but it's also, you know, it pays tribute to the 30, 40 years of advocacy that went before me. Before I got to be the first woman with a disability sitting in cabinet, many people were banging on doors and insisting that our rights be, you know, recognized. And I think this is the biggest piece of disability rights legislation since the Charter.
Minister Qualtrough, congratulations on the work thus far. We know you've got more work to do, so we're going to let you get to it. But thank you very much for sharing your time today.
Thanks for having me.